Welcome, David, to the show. I'm really excited to have you on the show. It's been, first Canadian and music artist on the show. I just want to welcome you to the Fiat Ministry show. How are you doing tonight?
Good, good. I really appreciate the opportunity. This is amazing.
Thanks.
Eh,
Uh, and just like I talk to all my guests, how would you describe your Fiat moments, or what helped you to continue going on your path of with Jesus and saying yes to Jesus every day? What was some of the things that helped you to continue on that journey walking with Jesus?
Yeah, I didn't have a particular Fiat moment. It was more of a process for me. I'm a convert, so I didn't have any religious background in the past, and my wife was also a convert. She belonged to the United Church, which in the States, I guess, would be the equivalent of the Methodist Church. And she didn't like the fact that there was really almost no ties to Christianity in terms of the basic core beliefs. And so she ended up becoming Catholic when she was 13, actually through taking music lessons from some sisters. And then I started on that journey after I'd met her, and we were dating, and she introduced me to Catholicism. And about a year before we were to be married, I was confirmed, baptized, and confirmed into the church. At that point, though, we weren't really properly catechized. We were almost encouraged to some extent to be cafeteria Catholics. So when we first became Catholic, or I should say, when I first became Catholic, I thought it was okay to kind of pick and choose what I truly wanted to believe. And so obviously, that wasn't my Fiat moment.
Hmm.
My Fiat movement actually came when a group of young individuals from the university started a rosary group, and I'll talk about that a little bit later on.
Hmm.
This rosary group actually met at the university, and from that original group, actually half of those people are now priests, which is pretty amazing.
That's awesome.
They, yeah, it is incredible, and but they were meeting at the meeting room of the gay, lesbian, transgender, and then you can go on and on.
Sure.
Now I think it's about 26 different genders that they try and squeeze into the acronym. But yeah, they were meeting right after this group, and they just didn't feel that it was very conducive to prayer, and so they asked if they could have the meetings in our house. So now for almost 17 years now, we've had this rosary group at our house. And it was really through Mary and through her
Hmm.
intercession, through praying the rosary, that we started to see that the things that we thought were okay weren't okay. And the rosary group really is what deepened our faith. And to this day, it's continually helping me to be a better follower of Jesus through his church and through his mother.
Yeah. And I think Mar it's so amazing, coming with even the fiat moment and saying yes and what you did and I know just talking to you, uh, previously to the interview to how much it took you to really search for your faith and really you wanted to and as a cradle Catholic you go through the you know basically getting away from the church, but you wanted to search out and
It
what
just,
kind of
sorry, just hold on. We'll have to. Jody, I'm doing this interview thing. You just walked right.
yeah.
Okay, sorry.
No, that's all right.
Jody, I'm doing this interview. You just walked through. I'm doing an interview right now. You're walking through.
Okay.
We'll just have to wait for her to go back. Sorry about that.
No, that's all right. I Let
Yeah,
me
I think
see
I
if I
told her. I think she forgot.
it's all right. We can Let me see if I can get a better while we're waiting. Yeah, there we go. That's better. Gonna
Jody, are you going back through again? Okay, we'll just wait. Sorry about that.
No, I'm sorry that on a Labor Day doing something. Um,
No, well, my wife's actually homeschooling right now, so
oh,
the kids didn't get the break.
oh,
Oh, can you leave that light on, Jody? You just turn the light. Or, yeah, thank you. Okay,
yeah,
I think we can
yeah,
go
that's
again.
all right. Okay, we'll just go with question. At, okay, 5-4. As as just being a convert and I know as a cradle Catholic, just being tugged to church and going to CCD and religion class, we weren't really searching. We were just kind of told, but you were kind of a different way as a convert. You were searching out your faith, and with with doing the rosary Wednesday nights and having people over and really you were putting the effort to search, and that's one thing I notice about a lot of converts. They definitely want to know and is curious about what the faith is all about. They don't know it, but they want to find out. What were some things that you did, or people that you listened to, or anything that really kept your search out? I mean, was it more on your own, or did you go to different speakers to listen, or CDs, kind of things like that?
Well, we had my path to Christianity came through evangelical friends first. So that was tough because, I would look at what they had, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they were, they had these awesome, really concerts and preaching
Yeah.
and fellowship. And as a Catholic, we didn't have that. So it was really, we had to really grasp things on the intellectual level. We had to really try and find a reason to believe as opposed to, a feeling. And
Mm-hmm.
so initially, the priest that married us was a wonderful charismatic priest. And we sort of got a little exposure through the charismatic movement of what it's like to be a on fire Catholic. But then it was really through the rosary. And then through there, we were introduced to speakers like Scott Hahn, um, uh, introduced to all sorts of tape series that helped us along our path. And then we started to realize that there's a depth to Catholicism that wasn't there with our evangelical friends. And that's important. And I'll probably come back to that again when we talk about the kids,
Mm-hmm.
why that's important. It's not just feeling fun and happy and friends and this warm, fuzzy feeling.
Yeah, and I think that's one thing I noticed just as a hearing, basically coming back to my faith through actually friends that are Protestants, and seeing all the hugs that you're feeling so welcome at a service, or at a gathering on a Wednesday night, playing music, and everybody's hugging and giving you like welcoming feeling. And then you're going to a mass, it's kind of like low key, we're in prayer, just the but the reverence that we show as Catholics sometimes, um, we'll be talking about it later on with the kids and with youth groups, and bringing up the what's the most important thing about a youth group? Is it the music? Is it all the glitz and glamour of a youth group, or is it the teaching? And I think we're throughout this interview coming back and back to how much we need to find and understand our faith, and really search out what it means to be the truth. And I think,
Absolutely.
I, what are some things that you would say, as just as you're as a musician and a father of just 9 kids, it's just a big happy family. Just what is it like to have um, a family that large, and showing a Catholic families back in the day were large, and I guess the question is, um, how does that all wrap into your daily journey with Christ, and with the kids, and you know, being in critical mass, the band, and just doing all these things as, I mean, it's a lot of stuff on your plate. What helps you to get through it, and with Jesus' help?
Well, the operative word in our house is chaos. Um, it's unbelievably busy. My wife actually has homeschooled the kids up until high school. The kids all are into sports. And one of my daughters now is doing music. They play soccer and hockey, and actually during the summertime, I spend most of my time in the evenings coaching soccer. So there's not a lot of downtime, and the one constant throughout this has to be the church, because otherwise you would lose yourself very, very quickly. Um, in all the sometimes our kids will be involved in, I think our record was 27 hockey games and practices in one weekend, probably in about 5 or 6 different cities. um, but no matter what happens, our kids never miss mass.
Mhm,
If they have to grab a cab and go to mass, they do that. It's a priority for them,
mhm,
and it's not something that we forced on them. It's something that they understand is very important and fundamental for them. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on. But it is so important that Jesus is the center of all this, and it's important for the kids to realize without being forced.
mhm,
I think the old days, you said cradle Catholics, you were told to do this.
mhm.
You know, I think that's very true of a lot of people who are cradle Catholics. They've been told the instruction manual, do this, don't do this, do this, don't do that, watch this, don't watch that, but they were never told why.
Mm.
And I think
That-
I think
that's very true.
the why is the critical part.
Mhm,
The why I think is key to the new evangelization.
mhm,
And the why is what Catholic converts bring to the picture because we had to struggle with the why,
mhm,
right? For us, it wasn't
mhm.
enough to just do this, don't do that. Thou shalt not contracept, right? We need
Right.
to know the why,
Mhm,
and that's what we bring to the picture. And one of the things that we've always found is that the church does represent the truth, does contain the truth. And every time we've asked the question why, the church has been able to give us a logical and a coherent reason that
mhm.
we have not been able to find anywhere else.
Yeah, and I think that's the great thing about the truth with the Catholic Church, that we have this, we can always find out the answers. And I
Yep.
know we'll be coming back to, we're gonna be there's a lot of more, and we'll get to that shortly. Just, you always, if you didn't know the answers, and you'll always find them out. And that's what I know you mentioned that in the pre-interviews that we've had, that, talking about, um if we don't know the answer, we'll surely find it and let you know. And
Exactly.
I think that's one thing that we'll also mention with your kids doing apologetics on
Yep.
Facebook. And I just signed up to be, in the group, and it's just a great way to, learn about. I mean, and kids doing this, and that's the great thing, is that actually that you got a foundation with your kids, and others to help out with this apologetics. And why
Yep.
why are Catholics great? It's great, and it's a great way of, but we need to know this. And
Absolutely.
so but we will take a short break, and we're gonna talk about Critical Mass, your band. And let's put up a image of the guys and you. There's everybody, and we'll get a little bit of insight about the band in a couple minutes. And so I'm going to just, we'll take a break, and we'll be right back. All right, now, okay, and then we'll just talk about. Um, let's see. Let's make sure I'm. Okay, so we'll just talk about Dorian Gray, and then pretend that it's playing, and then we'll come back. So we'll just. Okay, so I think you the gist. All right. Well, we're back, and I'm gonna bring back David. And I know it's a kind of funny thing. There's actually don't go to just criticalmass.com. Definitely the
Yeah.
website is right underneath David's name. It's criticalmassmusic.org. You'll go to a whole 180-degree difference of what we're talking about if you go to the one in the states. But um, David, just first off, give us a little bit about like everybody probably asks, and I've heard many times just talking to musicians, how did you pick up the name Critical Mass as the name of your band?
Well, being Catholic, the Mass is so central to everything. So we just thought critical mass. And I'm actually a university professor, and my initial background was in physics. So this whole idea of having, a critical mass of believers eventually causing revival and an explosion in the church was also part of that. So it had, all sorts of dual meanings that I thought was pretty cool. And so that we went with that name. And it is a struggle because there are numerous other bands with the same name. The one that you mentioned isn't the only one. There's many
Oh,
others, but
okay.
we're the only Christian rock band with that name.
That's cool.
Excuse me.
And I really enjoy, I mean, just listening what you have. It's actually, if you go to fiatministry.org, you will get a couple of the songs throughout our recorded stream. So just go on to the main website, and then also your daughter's music is on the website. So we're trying
Awesome.
to hopefully promote you guys through our ministry. So I hopefully people will watch and listen. And one of the great songs that you have is Dorian Gray. I get the whole picture of things get worse and worse and worse in the book. What I mean, and I guess that's, but I would rather let you describe it. What was the background of the song, especially throughout the whole entire video that you're playing? Were you trying to convey throughout the video?
Okay. Like all of our songs are very Catholic themed, and we try and deal with Catholic topics. And one of the biggest things attacking the church these days is pornography. And for those of you who are not familiar with the story of Dorian Gray is this very handsome man. He has a painting done of him, but he does all these awful, murderous, heinous acts. And the more evil he becomes, the more evil his picture becomes. But yet, he looks to everybody else like his actual self looks perfect. In fact, he never seems to age. But this picture that he keeps hidden becomes more and more grotesque. And what I wanted to use was that as an analogy for what happens to us when we get involved in things like pornography, where we think they're hidden. And one of the things that we realize as Catholics is we're part of a communion of saints. So we are part of a greater host of believers, and they're praying for us. And God Himself sees the things that we're doing. We aren't truly hidden, and they see us for who we really are. They see the picture that becomes more and more grotesque if we don't acknowledge our sins. And the bridge of the song actually talks about confession, about going back to confession and making that whole. And I think that's the key for Catholics when you're involved in something that is drawing you away from God is the sacrament of confession. Is incredibly useful for bringing you back to where God wants you to be. And so that's what the song is about, in a nutshell.
Well, we're gonna take a really quick, just a short cut of the song. So we're gonna listen to Dorian Gray with the band with David Wang, Critical Mass. So check it out, and we'll be right back. Okay. All right. Okay. 5, 4, 3. Well, we're back. I mean, it's just great, great music, and I enjoy it. I know it's rock and roll Christian, Christian rock. And is that something that you are was always passionate about? I mean, the kind of music that you're playing is definitely upbeat. Was that something that you always were drawn to as a
Yeah,
musician?
yeah, I'm actually a late bloomer as a musician. I didn't get back into the performing ends of things until I was 30, actually. I've always listened to Christian music. That was an influence from my evangelical friends. I listened to Christian music before it became decent. It used to be pretty bad up until Amy Grant and artists like that who took the music to another level. Um, then I became a concert promoter. I worked with several big names in the Christian music industry, one of whom actually now is our producer.
Hmm.
And but at the age of 30 is when I, with a group of friends who were all musicians in Catholic choirs in our region, decided to form our own band to try and do some outreach.
Hmm.
And so that's how we got involved. But it was my initial love of Christian music in all of its cheesiness initially that inspired me to do this and to bring that style of music into the Catholic Church.
Hmm. Well, and then the last thing, and I really enjoy just looking at the logo. If you want to just describe the band's logo and just the verses that you're using, we'll put them up on the screen, and just walk us through and talk us through what those meant, those verses meant, and the logo, that how you
Yeah.
created the logo.
Well, I mean, we do a lot of work within the general Christian music industry. We have two Canadian Gospel Music Awards for Best Rock Album, actually, which is pretty cool. But we wanted to emphasize that we are a Catholic band without having it um, be the focus. Because when we first started, being a Catholic band in the music industry would have been a little difficult. Right now, we have artists like Audrey Assad, Matt Maher, who
Mm,
are very Catholic. They're breaking new ground in that they're not ashamed of being Catholic and they're quite upfront about it. But in our days, that was 15 years ago, it would have been like difficult to get an audience. So critical mass, we wanted to focus on the mass part. So in our logo, underneath the mass is basically the verses from John chapter 6, the discourse on the bread of life, which are really the verses that talk about, Jesus being the bread of life, come down from heaven, the new manna, right?
mm-hmm.
And those verses are so critical to Catholic theology. So that's why we chose those verses. And even if you look at the logo, it's a circle which represents the host with Jesus superimposed, like that's a stylized Jesus superimposed on top. And the little curve that you see on the bottom is actually supposed to represent the chalice. So you see the chalice and the host, and with Jesus superimposed on both, of course, to signify the real presence of Jesus in the Eucharist. And so what we wanted to do was to have our logo be where, if people were actually interested, to be where the Catholic themes were. And even in our music, we have songs about Mary, we have songs about
Mm-hmm.
the Eucharist, but we are very careful to make sure that they're presented in such a way that they can be ecumenical.
Mm.
So, you could listen to an entire Critical Mass album and not really realize that we're Catholic unless you looked at the logo and the Bible verses, and then you go, oh, you'd
Yeah.
have you'd have an aha moment,
Yes,
right?
yes. And at the beginning, just listening to it, I knew that you guys were Catholic, but it's so much. It's so energetic and just great music. I actually enjoy Christian rock, and it seems like there's not a lot. I mean, we'll get this is the last part of the talking about the band, but you were bringing up, Matt Maher and some of the other uh, uh, artists that actually made it to mainstream, and how difficult. or struggles it is to be a Christian, a Catholic Christian, uh, band, and try to make a name for yourself, and try to bring in, people that want to listen to your music, and it's such just fires you up for, you know, throughout the day. You can listen to it and you just like, man, I'm ready to go and take on the day kind of thing. But is there struggles, and I bet there's some kind of things that you wish you could do but you can't, just because uh, the way, as what you want to present yourself as a band.
Yeah.
Is there some things that you want to just talk about there?
Okay, so there's plus and minuses of being Catholic in the Christian music industry. The plus is that we have this enormous hierarchy. We actually got to play at World Youth Day 2002 for JP2. We were like, he was literally feet away from us. We played for at the vigil. I think it was close to 1 million people. At the papal welcoming, it was 500,000. People don't often get a chance to play for that many people,
Sure.
right? So you do have these opportunities, incredible opportunities.
Hmm.
The Catholic Church, the hierarchy is also one of the reasons why we aren't as successful as we could be. Catholics uh, don't really support Catholic art, and that's been a problem throughout. A lot of Catholic musicians I know actually went totally the evangelical Protestant route because the evangelicals they supported the Christian music industry even when it was pretty bad, and allowed the Christian music industry to become successful. Right? They nurtured it,
Hmm.
gave it time. Catholics in general do not have that patience, and so what we find is that if you minister within the Catholic Church, people don't get it. They don't get that you need to charge for your services, right? They don't
Right.
understand recording takes money.
Hmm.
They don't understand that, I have to pay my musicians. If I want first-rate musicians, they have to earn an honest wage. And so these things are very, very difficult. And Catholics would prefer to listen to high-quality secular music than to seek out high-quality Catholic music.
Yeah.
That being said, when they find that it's there, they're very supportive. Um, but the bishops, the priests, the hierarchy, for the most part, don't know we're out there.
Yeah.
So it's a bit of a struggle in that way. So it can be a blessing and a curse to be a Catholic musician.
Yeah. Well, I just see that a lot, and I know there's uh, an annual festival in Cleveland, near Cleveland, where there's a bunch of bands, Christian bands, and then we have mass it's at the seminary, and it's just beautiful, evening mass, and uh, the music's great. Um, I know it's just so difficult to probably find those outlets like you had. I mean, amazing outlet, World Youth Day. I mean, how much better of a outlet could you have than the youth of of the world in your doorstep, and just listening to you, and giving you the love, and I bet it's just amazing opportunities that come with being a Catholic Christian. I say Christian Catholic, whatever band
Yeah.
is to, um, you know, it's something that we need to take, and I'm trying to. This is hopefully also just to, as getting your Fiat and understanding your background, but to hopefully people check out uh, criticalmassmusic.org and listen to David's music, and really enjoy it, and let him know, and call him if you can, book a date, get them out, get the band out, especially in the States, get them over here. If I could do it, I would, David. But thanks for just letting us hear a little bit insight of it. Just honored to have as a musician, the first musician on the Fiat Ministry show. So we're gonna take a break, and we're gonna talk about how do we get, and I need this more than anyone, but how do we get our kids to stay Catholic? And David's gonna talk a little bit about raising his kids and what he does, and just what. Uh, methods that he'll, because he's also a speaker and he does talks on helping to keep our kids. That was one of the bio things, right in the parentheses. How do you keep your kids Catholic? And so we'll get back to him on talking about that. So we'll take a quick break and we'll be right back. Okay, last time, and then we'll bring up. Uh, I'll have you have a nice Labor Day. Okay, um, 5, 4, 3. Okay, we're back, and just this is definitely dear to my heart now, being a young father of two. I have an image of I have a couple images of David's family, so I at least had to be at least give him a little bit of a uh, the level, the balance, and I'll put up my family first, and just to show everybody the kids, and we just did that a couple weeks ago. But and then we'll just bring over this huge and beautiful family. We're gonna start off uh, with the dogs, and just a great picture of the family. And also, I have another one, and we'll hopefully talk about a little bit more about uh, this with the hockey. And I know as Canadians, hockey's big. Can you give us a little, behind the scenes of this photo and what this was all about, especially the magazine?
Yeah, we were actually probably still are the biggest hockey family in Canada. All the kids play hockey. Um, and they've all tr most of them have played travel hockey. They also play soccer, but hockey is, Canada's passion.
Mm-hmm.
And we were actually on Hockey Night in Canada, being interviewed as being hockey's biggest family. So we're quite a curiosity here. It's neat because it gave us an opportunity. For example, in that magazine article, we talked about getting our kids to mass every weekend, and I don't know how many people have said to us, "Wow, that was very cool," because it showed that you were Catholic and were able to maintain that with all the sports. And a lot of people were kind of embarrassed too. I would hear people that had said, boy, I only have two kids, and when we have hockey, we just like we bypass church. We just don't go.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we cause a lot of guilt. Guilt's not a bad thing.
Yeah, right. And it's an example, and I guess the best example right now in the Catholic, you know, world is our Pope Francis showing the examples of what he does. But on the side, I mean, you're showing that with your family, examples of how we can still, because I know, around in Geneva, Ohio, there's a lot of sports, and trying to keep the kids connected to our faith, and then also letting them have fun, which I had fun. I know you had fun when we were young, but trying to just keep them grounded in the faith. But to talk about, okay, how do we keep our kids Catholic, David? What are some highlights or some points that we could make and think about for our kids and for
Well,
examples?
well, I think what's really important is what you mentioned. Kids are looking for fun. And un there's no way for you to pitch going to mass every Sunday as fun in the way they would normally think of it, right? They would
Hmm.
rather hang out with their friends. So, what a lot of Catholic parents do is they force their kids to go. And I can tell you right now, we actually don't force our kids to go on Sunday. They actually are the ones taking the initiative. And so, you look at also youth groups.
Hmm.
We live in a very Protestant area. So, we allowed our kids to go to the Protestant youth groups, and boy, they were fun.
Hmm.
And, again, you can't compete as Catholics if you're going to just try and counter it with fun. Now we do have our weekly rosary group, which is awesome. But through the weekly rosary group, what they are experiencing is the truth, and that's what we've always told our kids and taught our kids is that what you really want to do, and there's nothing more exciting as opposed to fun. Exciting. There's nothing more exciting than seeking the truth.
Mm,
And so we've tried to allow our kids to experience the world. We don't say you can't listen to this secular musician, you can't listen to this Protestant artist, you can't go to this Protestant youth group. But we always emphasize that the truth, though, is in Catholicism. And no matter what questions you have, whether they're, what is the scriptural reason why we have the Eucharist? What are the scriptural reasons why we believe, in the Marian doctrines that we believe?
mm,
Uh, our kids have gradually realized that any questions they have eventually can be answered
mhm,
by the church. In order to do that, though, it was really important that my wife and I be truly Catholic.
mm,
Because
mhm,
kids can spot a phony.
mhm,
Uh, if you're saying that, the Catholic Church contains the truth and you're contracepting, that's going to be a tough one. The kids can spot that and they'll go, well, wait a second. Here's something that they kind of don't believe in. So how can they possibly look at the church as being the truth?
mhm,
So, one of the focus when I talk to parents is that the way to keep your kids Catholic is that you have to be Catholic. You have to believe in the church. You have to search. Why does the church teach these things? So that when your kids come to ask you questions, you can give them answers why. And eventually, you might even get them to the point where they'll create their own Facebook social
mhm.
group where they actually not only are
Yeah.
proud of the fact that they know the answers, but if they don't know the answers, they know that, they may need to check with St. Thomas Aquinas, but there'll be
Mm,
somebody in the last 2,000 years who have looked at that question, who have answered that question. And one of the things is being in a very Protestant area is that the kids have had to, they're challenged all the time about their faith. I remember one time one of my kids said, my oldest son got in trouble in math class and I asked why he got in trouble in math class, and it was because he was talking. And I said, well, what were they talking about? Well, apparently my son was debating with his Protestant friends about indulgences, and was winning the argument, which made me happy.
well,
Um,
that's great.
so yeah, so it's important, and some people look at my wife and I and say, "Wow, you guys, I don't know how you do it. You guys seem to be, like you said, the model family, the perfect family." But I can tell you that that wasn't the case. We had our struggles. My wife and I actually separated for 3 months. But if it wasn't for our Catholic faith, um, our family would have self-destructed.
Mm,
And it was important that even when we were going through our difficulties, that we were all solidly Catholic. So that gave us a place to work back to. And we're not perfect. We've had our struggles. I mean, when you have 9 kids fighting, yeah, it can be very chaotic. So it's not trying to be perfect. It's trying to be Catholic,
mm,
right? And it's
yes.
important that the parents have to be Catholic. The parents have to understand, and we have a lost generation. I think our generation has been incredibly poorly catechized.
Mm,
We have not been good Catholics as a generation, and so we need to restore that to our generation before we can even start to think about restoring it in the next.
yeah. That's and that's so true. And we need to because hopefully this is just a small way of doing it, and it's just my I just love and passion of my faith and show. But it is true. Our generation is kind of lacking, and we always people are talking about, boy, JP2 Pope John Paul II really helped with the youth and bringing us, as a the young generation to back to the church, get us fired up. And I mean, he's a huge reason that I think about what I'm doing and probably what you're doing with your in a sense, ministries of music and other and speaking engagements. And as a father, and as everything that you're doing is somewhat of a respect for how do we be the best Catholics and share it with others? And
Yeah.
what examples can we be? And I get caught, and I'm probably not as good as anyone else, but I try to do my best, and that when I definitely falter, I know I have my wife definitely helps me with my struggles and anything else, and the family just helps knowing that we have such a huge responsibility with the kids to
Hmm.
know what is the truth, and our faith is so important that when we leave this world, I mean, we're either going to heaven or hell. There's, and I mean, purgatory. I understand, but eventually you're gonna go to one of the
Yep.
two. But I think just on. I know we were talking about the Facebook page. Can we, just talk a little bit, and I will have it in the show notes so you can actually click on to the Facebook page. But can you give us a little bit about the with the kids and uh, uh, the page? Could you?
Yeah. Basically, the page is set up to answer questions about Catholic doctrine and practices. And from the viewpoint of the evangelicals, they think we're crazy. They think we're nuts.
Yeah.
And even from sort of some of the cradle Catholics or the Catholics that don't really, haven't really sought out what the church really believes and what it teaches, it's an opportunity for my kids to try and address that. So the kids actually do a lot of the responses, but we have some other people on board who are seminarians, and we have a couple of priests. We have someone who's a catechist from Steubenville, who
Oh,
help with answers because we most of all we don't want to give wrong answers.
right.
And it's funny because about half the group are evangelical Protestants who, disagree with our beliefs, but it gives my kids a chance to explain why they believe what they believe, and it's so important. Like I started this segment talking about going to mass regardless of sports,
Mm-hmm.
and not forcing them. Well, they understand that that's really Jesus at mass,
Mm-hmm.
that heaven literally touches earth. And because they understand that, I don't have to force them to go to mass. They realize that, that this is it. This is the pinnacle of their existence on earth, right? To go to mass.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, they will, they will do whatever it takes to get to mass. And that's where we need to get our kids. They need to understand the truth. They need to understand what confession is. They need to understand the role of the saints and the intercession of the saints and their prayers. They need to understand scripture and history. I took my kids to Rome, and for them, it was really neat because now it wasn't just the scriptures agreeing with the church, it was history and
Mm-hmm.
archaeology. They
Mm-hmm.
saw the graves, the tombs of the early Christians, and they saw, all the symbols. They saw the altars, right? They saw
Mm-hmm.
the, St. Peter. We actually managed to get them in to see St. Peter's, tomb,
Wow.
right? Which is an archaeological dig.
Yeah.
And so they everything makes sense from philosophy to archaeology to history to scriptures. It all makes sense, and that's what they use that Facebook to do book group to do is to try and explain this to their friends. What's kind of interesting is my oldest son is a bit of a yeah, he likes to kind of stir things up, and so he'll often go on there and just throw on some crazy comment about Catholicism and then he'll walk away, and then he'll watch me and his sisters, write all these lengthy explanations. But he's doing it so that, his friends can see that there is a reason. I just
Mm.
wish he wouldn't do it in that way.
I mean, it's just great to hear that, kids are taking. I mean, I I worked with the youth for a couple years, and I'm not, there's some that you're worried about and you have to pray for, but overall, I mean, they want to know. Eventually they want to find out. It's sometimes like talking about, do we need to make it lively and fun, and bring get them into the seats and being sitting down and actually uh, being present there. But then as soon as we get them there, I know like a parish priest back in Erie, Pennsylvania, always said, all you have to do is get them sit, you have them captured, at mass. That's your opportunity to, really teach them and give, as a, congregation or as a youth group, as soon as they're there, it might be a fun, beginning, but then at some point, that teaching will be, worthwhile, and the reward will hopefully come down. That's the thing, you can't really see it. That's one thing I was always struggling at the beginning, was you never can't really see what these kids are going to experience or really finally get it click, that fire, that spark. You might not see it, but if you get just that, just the lit, just the, the spark
Yep.
of the flame just going. But I guess I know it's tough around here. Mentioning about the Protestant, it's a lot of Protestant youth groups, and trying to get a Catholic youth group together, because I know in Geneva, Ohio, it's definitely difficult. Is there something that, what you would say that would make, or, being involved with a youth group, or just being with the kids and knowing, talking to your kids, kind of some highlights or things that we should think about when we're planning a youth group, or, getting
Yep.
involved with a youth group?
Well, Steubenville is a great place to send
Yeah,
kids to.
that's a good point. Good
But the
point.
other thing too is our Wednesday night rosary groups have been going for almost 17 years now, and we basically start off with a Bible study, and it's a Catholic Bible study. We're right now actually going through the Book of Revelation and how it relates to the Mass,
Hmm.
and it's really quite interesting to see all these high school and kids sitting there in rapt attention listening,
Hmm.
right? They want to know, like you said, they're thirsting for knowledge.
Hmm.
And then we pray the rosary, and then we have a social. And that's what we've been doing for
That's a good.
17 years. My kids love it. And not only that, but we've had numerous seminarians, numerous priests, religious sisters that have come because of this group, that have become more devout. And we find out time and time, we've had hundreds of people over the 17 years come through this group. And it's always amazing when we hear stories
Hmm.
about how important this group was to them.
Yeah.
And my kids, like I said, went to Protestant, prayer
Hmm.
meetings or youth nights,
Right.
and at the end of the day, they found them empty, right?
Hmm.
The prayer, the Bible studies that they went to, they would come back afterwards and say, "Wow, that was just fluff. There was no
Hmm.
substance. Everyone's just telling them what they thought, and
Yeah.
there was
Right. Yep.
no substance to it." So if Catholic uh, those Catholic churches that are trying to emulate the Protestant fun environment,
Hmm.
it's or just trying to do only social sports type things. Those I found are bound to end in failure at some point,
Hmm.
unless you can give them the truth to gnaw on. They will
Hmm.
eventually leave. But if you give them the truth, present them challenging things, it'll connect and resonate with them. My son and my oldest daughter, went to Spain for World Youth Day. The last night, apparently, there was a huge debate, and the debate was on contraception, artificial
Hmm.
contraception. And without me ever teaching or priming my kids, the two oldest, they held their own in a debate, and they were on the side of the church. So it was very interesting to see how passionate they were about that. And it was actually nothing that I had taught them or showed them. It was something that they sought out on their own, but because they wanted to and they were
Hmm.
excited,
Hmm.
right? They were
Hmm.
excited about their faith.
That, and boy, do we need that, all over, and that's just an example of what, and you definitely have to take but it's definitely God's walking in their lives, and that shows it right there that He's there and He's present. And in the sense, I know everybody, but it just shows that examples and sharing. It's a great testimony just to hear that from, there are out there. There's a lot of bad and negative things out in this world, but we still have that the truth, and we still have the grace of Jesus Christ, and just knowing that just bit by bit things could get better, and but just as a final thought, and talking about your kids, I know one of them is, like you were saying earlier, is also a music artist, and um, can you give her? I'm gonna put her up on the screen right now. Is there something that as a proud father, that what are these kind of things to see her, kind of, you know, playing music that, you know, and just being a proud father, sharing of, the talents that she has, other than just as a faithful Catholic, as an artist and a musician.
She's quite incredible. She's actually much more talented as a songwriter than I am. She has music that she wrote when she was 14, 15 years old. That's on her current album. A lot of people don't realize that she wrote most of her songs when she was 14, 15. She's actually got enough material for a new album. She has a really interesting approach. She's not in your face with her faith,
Mm,
so she's getting both secular and Christian attention as in addition to being part of the Catholic Church. She's actually had to create three different shows depending on the audience that she's in front of.
yeah.
But she's hugely talented, and her Catholic faith plays a huge role in her music. But yeah, God's given her a gift. It's she's uh, just recently was a finalist in the John Lennon Songwriting Contest, which is an international competition. And the gospel inspirational category only has three finalists and a winner, and she was one of the three finalists for something she wrote when she was 15. So
Wow.
God's giving her a gift, and right now, my wife and I are just trying to help her hone that gift. And we don't know where God's leading her, but we do know that she wants God to be a part of her ministry. And when she goes up for interviews, she's very unashamedly talking about her faith.
Mm,
And she struggled too. Again,
yeah.
it's not about being perfect. She struggled with depression, was even suicidal. We didn't even know about it. And it was her Catholic faith that brought her through it, because we were actually somewhat oblivious. We didn't, when you have nine kids, you don't necessarily see what everyone is suffering through. We didn't know that she had this severe depression.
Mm,
And but when she goes on stage and talks about being suicidal and feeling this depression, she talks about how it was her faith that saved her, her beliefs,
yeah.
and it's a powerful message. And to hear her on stage, it's difficult because you think as a parent, man, how could I have missed that, right?
Mm,
But it all comes back that the one gift that we did give to her was her Catholic faith, and that's what ultimately saved her. It wasn't us that saved her; it was her Catholic faith. My wife often says, so many parents think that they have to give their kids the best education, the best toys, the best sports opportunities. No, our job is our only job is to get our kids to heaven. None of
mm.
the other stuff matters. So, and the only way we can do that is if we be strong Catholics ourselves. So it's a wake up call to our generation.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I and like I said, I mean, I definitely don't have any artistic talents, but just to hear her throughout the, definitely go to fiatministry.org, and just listen to the songs that she has. Piano playing is, I mean, it's just beautiful music to hear, and we'll have everything, links to her everything, her website. Uh, Definitely, I know she's on Twitter. I try to get, or she's on other different things, but definitely go to the website. We'll have that in the show notes, and I'll have it underneath the video as soon as possible, just to get you directly to her page and see if the upcoming events that if you are in Canada in the area, or just maybe want to, if it's possible to get her booked somewhere, it would be great. So I just hopefully down the road to have her on the show in a future episode. But again, David, thank you for just expressing your Fiat moments, talking about the band, and especially how to keep our kids Catholic is probably just so important, and just as a father. So I really appreciate your time. Is there anything that you want to promote at the end, just to let everybody know if there's anything going on with the band, or just anything that you would like to final thoughts that you have about the show?
Yeah, there's actually a sister website to our band website called CatholicRock.com. And CatholicRock.com is actually, we use our music videos to try and teach the faith, and there's links to all sorts of resources there. So, if people want some resources that are a little different in terms of teaching the faith, we've got songs on there, everything on, the apostolic succession to Mary to the Eucharist. We've got all sorts of topics that we cover on there, and with great links to Catholic answers and stuff like that. So hopefully people will use that as a resource.
I will definitely, and we'll come back to the. I'll definitely get on that on the show notes too. I was trying to get the band, and you have so much stuff on that. I mean, it's just great what you're doing. And so again, David, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight, and we will let him have a great evening. And we're just gonna jump over. Just so thank you again, David, and
Thank you.
we're gonna jump over. Uh, just a great show tonight, and David Wang, Critical Mass. Go to criticalmassmusic.org for just to check out his website. Um, and just let everybody know next week we will have Joe Miller talking about. I don't know, he's unplugged, so who knows what he'll be talking about. But have a great week, and we will see you next week on the Fiat Ministry Show, 9 p.m. Sunday night. So have a great week, and God bless.